Preview show presented by Gold Athletics. I'm your host, John Sarianides. And as always, I'm joined by my partners, Tyler Amaral and Mukala Kabongo. Gentlemen, how are you this evening? We're coming to you a little earlier tonight. Usually we do Wednesday nights, coming to you tonight on a Tuesday night. But gentlemen, how are you doing?
This is it, final stretch.
It's crazy, isn't it?
State chip week is here, man. We've made it.
Yeah, it is. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Mukala. Final stretch. This is it. I mean, it's championship weekend in Massachusetts, and it seems like every time we do that first week one episode, it feels like we're so far away from this point. But yet here we are, and it's really, truly, genuinely hard to believe. Now, before we do start the conversation here, and we're going to preview every single one of the 8 Super Bowl matchups this weekend at Gillette Stadium here in Massachusetts. I do want to remind you that we are brought to you by Gold Athletics. Winter coaches, your season has started. If you need that last-second fundraiser, visit goldathletics.com today. Matt Ross and his team can get you set up with a fundraiser that works for your program, your school, and your community. Visit goldathletics.com today for more information. And spring coaches, your season will be here before you know it. You better get off your fannies and start fundraising, coaches. Visit goldathletics.com today. Matt and his team will get you set up with a fundraiser that is guaranteed to generate some much-needed revenue. All right, gentlemen, obviously, big weekend at Gillette Stadium. It all kicks off on Thursday night. You have 2 Super Bowl matchups on Thursday night. You have the Division 7 Super Bowl matchup, and it culminates with the D6 Super Bowl matchup, 2 matchups on Friday night, Divisions 5 and 3, and then on Saturday you have Divisions 8. You have Division 4, Division 2, and Division 1. Now, we're not going to talk about the games in that order. We're going to go 8-1. So we're going to start off with the first matchup on Saturday morning, which is a rematch. It features Randolph versus West Boylston. West Boylston going for the 4-peat. Randolph looking to avenge a loss last year. When I look at this matchup on paper, Randolph returns a lot of that team from last year. West Boylston didn't bring back as many guys, but they did bring back some key guys like Dominic Renzoni. Mukala, I'm going to start with you. Is this a game where it's easy to look at Mike Ross's Lions and say they know what it takes to win a state title? They've done it the last 3 years. They're not going to be a prohibitive favorite like they've been the last couple of years, but you can't count them out here. Or do you look at this Randolph team and say, it's time? This program's been building to this. This senior class has been building to this. It's their year.
Yeah, I think I think this is Randolph's year. I honestly think that, I've been harping on Mekhi White all season. He's come up big in every situation for them this season. He's had some big games. He had another outstanding game against a really tough Neshoba team. That was a really good game. One of the better games of the semifinals. It literally was a 1-score game throughout. Randolph made the plays necessary to win it, but it's just Mekhi White. I think losing last year, they've looked like a team that really took it upon themselves to get back to this point after last year's loss, because the way that game played out, they started off slow offensively. West Boylston jumped on them early. Then they got in their groove, but it was just a little bit too little too late for them, and that time ran out on them. This West Boylston team, though, they do got Renzoni, that another stud running back who could easily take over the game. So we got 2 backs that could easily take over the game. We got a game where this game might end in 45 minutes the way these 2 teams play offense. We're not gonna get that many passes, but I just think Mekhi White, he's gonna put on another stellar performance, and I think Randolph is just gonna hold them off this time, like by 1 score. 1 score. They're gonna pull it off with a 1-score game. But I'm looking forward to this matchup.
I think that earlier in the year, like before Randolph beat Cohasset, I probably would have leaned towards West Boylston, but that Cohasset win was really eye-opening to me. Very impressive win for Randolph. Mukali mentioned Mekhi White, but they also have Alan Oriska, who's really emerged. He was an all-league player as a lineman. Now he's an all-league caliber player as a running back. He also plays on defense, and he's a good kicker as well. So he makes plays in all 3 phases. He's a special player there for Randolph. I think he's a guy that could be the difference. You also have Abe Cornett, a 3-year starter at quarterback. So Randolph team is deep. John, you mentioned the experience. they do have that edge, West Boylston, this year. But West Boylston, they're obviously very good. They're in their 4th straight state championship game. Tough to doubt Mike Ross this time of year. They also have a second back there capable of beating you, Tommy Wyatt. We saw him, have a couple good games here in the playoffs. Dominic Ranzoni, I believe he's 3 touchdowns away from the Central Mass single season record held by Angelo LaRose of Worcester South. So that's something to keep an eye on in this game. We could see history in a few different spots, a few different games here, and that's just one of them. So West Boylston going for the 4-peat, and then Ranzoni chasing that touchdown record as well. This should be a really fun game. I think Randolph's going to get off to a much better start than they did last year. I expect it to be back and forth throughout. I think it's going to be a one-possession game in either direction. I lean Randolph, and a trend I'm following this year is how the teams that sat their starters on Thanksgiving do, because recently the teams that sat their starters on Thanksgiving, they have not performed well at Gillette. There were 2 teams that did that this year. They were West Boylston and Norwell. I'm interested to see how they do. I go Randolph here. I think it's going to be something like 28-22. Again, one-score game in either direction, but I lean Randolph. I think John Marshall and his guys get it done this year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fantastic matchup, and I agree with both of you. This Randolph team has that look about them. It's a senior-laden team. They, as I mentioned earlier, they've been building to this. Coach Marshall has done a terrific job with this program. And West Boylston, look, it's old hat for them. They're there for the 4th straight year looking to 4-peat. But I think that they might be up against it here against this Randolph team that is very well balanced, too. You mentioned Cornett. He can make some plays in the passing game for them. They can throw the football. You focus so much on Mekhi White and Nariska and that running game, but Cornett is a dual threat guy who not only can run the football and make an impact, but he can also make some plays in the passing game. He's going to be a player to watch in this game as well. I do agree with both of you here with the Randolph pick. I just think this is their year. And like I said, Marshall's been building to this. This class has been special now for 4 years there. I think they get it done. Well, hopefully the West Boylston community doesn't hold this against us too much. All right, next up we have the Division 7 Super Bowl. This will be the first matchup of the weekend. It kicks everything off on Thursday at 5. It features Amesbury versus Cohasset. And Tyler, I'm going to start with you. You mentioned Cohasset earlier losing to Randolph in what was an impressive win for the Blue Devils rather. But when you look at this Cohasset team, talented skill group, this is a program that's used to playing on this stage. Peter Afanasu has had this program contending year in and year out, especially in Division 7, going up against an Amesbury team that likes to pound the football, play keep away, play physical, control the pace. If Cohasset wants to make this a track meet and open it up and use their athletes in space, their dual athlete guys, their football lacrosse guys, it's not going to be easy against an Amesbury team that is tough and battle-tested. This is a team that has had playoff success as well in recent years.
They have. They met 2 years ago in the state semis, and Amesbury, took it to Cohasset. I think Cohasset's they certainly haven't forgotten that matchup from 2 years ago. I think this Cohasset team is a little bit more well-rounded and able to handle the physicality that Amesbury brings to the table. I haven't seen Cohasset in person this year, but what I've been told by multiple people is that they are bigger up front than they have been in recent years. And, of course, they still have that skill. Gus Green, Max Monahan, and, of course, Michael Wildfire at quarterback. It's a program with tradition. This is their 4th time at Gillette since we've gone to the statewide format. So they won a state championship in 2021. The Skippers, man, they're good. They've had a great season, only 2 losses so far. And then on the other side, Amesbury, they're a team that I think early in the year, Uxbridge got a lot of attention in this division, and then it sort of shifted to Cohasset. But Amesbury, the entire time, has just handled business. They're undefeated right now. They haven't really played in many close games. They did play a close game in the semifinals against Clinton, though. They were able to show a lot of grit in that one and pull it out in the final 10 seconds or whatever it was, that game-winning score. So I think this Amesbury team. So Amesbury beat Cohasset 2 years ago, and I don't think Cohasset forgets that. But Amesbury lost in the state championship 2 years ago, and I don't think they forget that. There's still some players on that team. And then the offense. Like I think when you play against these types of offenses, when you talk about like a triple option like Fairhaven or this T offense that Amesbury runs, it's not something you see too often in 2025. A lot of misdirection. It's really tough to identify where the ball is, and they can put together 7-8 minute long drives, and I think that wears on you. I think that's going to wear down this Cohasset team. I lean Amesbury. Might be a slight upset, but I think the Red Hawks get this one done here. I think they just wear down Cohasset. They end up winning this one in the fourth quarter, but I think this is another evenly matched game on paper.
Man, I think this might be a shootout. I mean, I think we might see a lot of points in this one. I think Amesbury's offense, nobody's been able to stop them this season. They've really just been dominating teams this season, and I think this is one of those teams. I just think this is their year. Everything that they've done this season, it just tells me like this is their year, especially offensively, defensively, how they've just been going out and dominating teams this season. So I'm really high. I've been really high on Amesbury. I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna pick them to win this one. I just think they've just been too good all season.
Yeah, we can't all agree, and this is the first time all season that I'm making picks, so we can't always agree. We all agreed on Randolph. I'm going to disagree with you guys here. I'm going to go with Michael Wildfire and the Skippers here. I think that, look, here's the thing. Amesbury's tough to play against in that T offense because, again, as I mentioned earlier, they can run the football, control the clock, control the pace, really, and they shorten the game in that offense. And for Cohasset, they're going to need to maximize their possessions because they may not get as many as they're used to getting. That being said, I do think Amesbury's going to struggle to match up on the perimeter against that skill group. As you mentioned, Tyler, you mentioned Wildfire, Green, Monahan. It's a really good skill group. And I think that they're big enough up front that they can match up with this Amesbury team physically along the line of scrimmage. I think that proves to be the difference. I'm going to go Cohasset. I think they get it done in Division 7 and win their first state title since 2021. All right, next up, we're going to go to Division 6, which is going to be the second game on Thursday night, the 7:45 kickoff. It features Norwell versus Fairhaven. Fairhaven is back at Gillette Stadium again after winning it 2 years ago. Of course, Justin Marks, Mr. All Everything for the Blue Devils, has since graduated, but it doesn't matter. Derek Almeida has a machine going down there in Fairhaven that they haven't skipped a beat offensively. I mean, yes, Marks was the centerpiece of that offense, but now it's a more balanced attack. There's ball distribution there in terms of getting guys touches. They're going up against a Norwell team that's very good. Jack Lucarelli, one of the best players in the state, team that could score a lot of points. But Tyler, I'm going to start with you. I think that the problem here for Norwell is, though, you've got to defend a balanced running game being run by a coach who has been running this system for a long time and has had a lot of success with it in Almeida.
Definitely, and I think where Fairhaven ran into some trouble, like Justin Marks was a obviously terrific player, all-time state leader in touchdowns, but I think where they ran into problems, last year was when he went down, they didn't really know what to do. They didn't know how to pivot off of that against Hudson in the state championship game. I think they're more equipped for something like that this time around. They have 4 500-yard rushers this year. This is a team that they should surpass, unless Norwell really clamps down on them. They will surpass 4,000 rushing yards on the season, which is just insane.
Outrageous.
And they're super well coached, and I think Coach Almeida likes the versatility he has this year. They're able to beat you inside with the dives, and they're also able to beat you outside. The quarterback can beat you a little bit as well. And I think most importantly is the defense has caught up to the offense. Since that West Bridgewater shootout loss, the defense has played really well for this Fairhaven team. There's never been a question about this offense. I've talked about it every week. They play a run-first game, and they play this triple option, but they do play with tempo, and you can pretty much guarantee they're going to score at least 35 points. And so I think this is a game that's going to be a shootout. I don't know that Norwell is going to be able to come up with stops when they need to. So I do lean Fairhaven in this one, but I think it's going to be high-scoring game. I think this is a game that you could see both teams get into the 30s. Ultimately, I would settle on something like 35-28 Fairhaven, but I think it's going to take an all-time historic performance from Jack Lucarelli to pull this one out for Norwell, but he's certainly a player capable of that. He has over 2,100 yards rushing, and Norwell didn't play their starters on Thanksgiving, so he didn't play on Thanksgiving. He still has 2,100 yards and 36 touchdowns. So, and he's another one. If he runs for 4 touchdowns in this game, he'll set the single season record for Norwell, which has stood since 1998. So, Norwell's they're the team entering Gillette with the longest drought. Fian is the only other team that hasn't been here in the last 10 years, and then Norwell hasn't been here since 1999. So it's been a great year for Coach Piffy in his first year as head coach at Norwell. But I think also I should have brought this up earlier. Fairhaven, this is their third straight year here, so they might not have those typical Gillette jitters, right? Like John, you see this with King Philip. Of course, it's a much different than a high school venue, but you've been there before. You know what to expect at Gillette, in the different sort of game day where you're playing after another game, and it's just it's sort of entirely unique situation. But I think Fairhaven's going to know what to expect. They're ready for this. They have a lot of seniors on the team, and I think that balance is just going to pay off here. Fairhaven wins.
Yeah, I think that loss last year for Fairhaven might have, they probably did not forget about that. As you said, Marks went down, and it looked like they was offensively just wasn't too sure of what they wanted to do or how they wanted to execute last season. But now they got a better picture now. I mean, they've been very consistent this year. They played in some games where they put up a lot of points. They played in some low scoring games. They played in different types of games. So I'm leaning towards Fairhaven in this one. I just think what happened last year, and them losing Marks, and them feeling like they lost their guy that would have got them a back-to-back title, is going to help them for motivational purposes. I think they're going to take this one.
Yeah, it's hard to pick against them in this game. And look, Norwell did sit their starters on Thanksgiving. I'm not a fan of that move, but who am I to question their staff and their decisions? Every coach does what they think is best for their program. I don't think that's going to be the reason they don't win this game, though. I think Fairhaven is hungry. They're motivated after losing to Hudson last year. They want to prove that they can get it done without Justin Marks. He was a darling in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Everybody, he kind of was his coming out party, and everybody realized how good a player he was, and he followed that up with a terrific senior year. But I think that this has been a program that's been on a mission to prove this season that they can get back here for one, but to also prove that they are a lot more than one player, a player that is an all-time great in the program and in state history, and a player that's going to be loved and revered for a long time. But I think Derek Almeida, his staff, the kids on this year's team, they wanted to prove that, hey, we can get there and win this. We can do it with a more collaborative approach on offense and more guys touching the ball. I think they did that. I think that West Bridgewater game was in many ways a wake-up call for this football team. I think they respond. I think they get it done. I think they figure out a way to slow down Lucarelli and that run game. And I think ultimately Fairhaven, on the backs of their running game, which is their strength, will take care of business and win the Division VI Super Bowl. It will be their second Super Bowl win in 3 years. You are watching the High School Preview Show presented by Gold Athletics. I'm your host, John Sarianides. As always, I'm joined by Tyler Amaral and Mukala Kabongo. Just a reminder, coaches, if you're looking for a fundraiser that works for your school, program, and community, visit goldathletics.com today. Matt Ross and his team will get you set up to make that money. Again, visit goldathletics.com today for more information. All right, next up, we have another rematch, and this is the Division V Super Bowl, which will be played on Friday evening at 5 p.m. It features Shawsheen and Foxborough. These two programs are meeting for the third straight year, second year in a row in the Super Bowl. Shawsheen currently holds the state's longest winning streak. Foxborough is coming off a tough loss to Mansfield on Thanksgiving, but the Warriors, for the most part this season, have been pretty dominant. They have taken care of business. Their 3 losses are to King Philip, North Attleboro, and Mansfield. If you lose to those 3 teams, I mean, that means you're playing a really good schedule is what it really means. Foxborough will be looking for some revenge after last year's loss. A tough game for the Warriors in which they got shut out. Tyler, I'm going to start with you again. Do you see the Warriors getting that revenge this year, or does Shawsheen go back-to-back?
This is going to be a fun one. If you like low scoring physical football Division 5 and Division 3 are going to be the games for you. And no surprise, 3 of the 4 teams in those games are Hockomock League schools. But Shawsheen sort of plays like a Hawk school. They like to run the ball. They like to play defense. And it's incredible what they've done as a tech school here. This run they've been on where they haven't lost at home in like 4 years. They have the state's longest winning streak, third state title game appearance in 4 years, and fourth straight year in the state semifinals. It's been one hell of a run here for Shawsheen. I've seen Foxborough more than I've seen any other team this year. They're obviously a well coached program. They're terrific and very sound on defense. I saw what they did to Archie's in the state semifinals. I was there for that one and just completely smothered Hudson Garrity and company. Gave up 45 total yards in the game and a 31-0 win. And that was without Ryan Foley. And I don't really know if Foley's playing in this one. It didn't seem overly positive. Speaking to some people, before that semifinal game, Jack Taft has filled in admirably, but Foley's a two-way star, one of the better players in the state. So that's something to monitor there. But I think I'm gonna lean Shawsheen. I know. I hope Wes and Brian aren't too pissed about that one, but I'm gonna go with the Rams here. I think they get it done again. I think it's gonna play out similarly to last year. I think we're looking at something like 14-7, 14-10, really low score. Shawsheen still has a lot of pieces in place. They lost Sid Tilsley, but Jake Banda leading the backfield. He's ran for almost 1,500 yards this year, and then James Tilsley leading the defense. And then his dad Brian Tilsley leading the defense there for the Rams. He does a great job with them as well. So this should be one hell of a game, one hell of a battle. These teams aren't conference rivals, but they've met so many times in the playoffs here. They've had some really physical slugfest. They do not like each other. Neither team likes each other, and I think they expected to get back to this game. And they wanted to get back to this game against each other, and it happened. That's the way it worked out. But I'm going with Shawsheen here to repeat.
Yeah, I've been able to catch Shawsheen once when they play St. Mary's, but I've been able to also catch some of the games up on YouTube. This team is very physical. You talk about a physical defensive team. These guys are physical. They play zero coverage. They play man-to-man the whole game. They have linebackers who go downhill. They have a strong defensive line, and they make things very difficult. They dominated in the postseason. They dominated St. Mary's. They dominated Salem. You got the Banda brothers. This is probably one of the better teams they put out, and that's tough to say. After last year's team that won it up, this team might be a little bit better than that team from last season. So I think Shawsheen has Shawsheen has everything to win this one. But great matchup for them, though. Two teams that got history. Two teams. That game last year we were scoreless for the first 3 quarters until things picked up a little bit in the second half, and Shawsheen was able to pull it away. And I'm hearing like some of the coaches on the staff this might be their last year on the staff, because some guys kids are graduating and step down, and I think Coach Constable, this might be his last season coaching. These are just rumors, but if that's the case, they want to go out on a high note and send some of those coaches out on a high note.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Foxborough. The loss on Thanksgiving was perplexing to me. But that's Mansfield and Mike Redding, and that's a great program. And they were playing for a piece of a league title. So it's not a surprise that they came to play. That's one of the best Thanksgiving rivalry games in the state. James Warren winning it with a 49-yard field goal in the fourth quarter for Mansfield. Foxborough was right there, very easily could have won that game. That being said, I think this is a motivated bunch. I think Jack Martinelli plays a good schedule year in and year out to prepare his teams for moments like this. I think that this Foxborough team is motivated. They have a chip on their shoulder. They played the better schedule. I think that's going to make them more battle-tested. I think that's going to be the difference here. I agree with both of you. I think it's going to play out a lot like last year's game did. I see it being a 14-7 kind of game, maybe 14-10. But this time I think the Warriors do get it done. and they win their second Super Bowl in 3 years. It would be Jack Martinelli's sixth, I believe, if they do get it done. So I think Foxborough edges out Shawsheen in what should be a great game. All right, next up we have the Division 4 matchup, which will be played on Saturday morning. It features the defending champion Scituate Sailors taking on the Tewksbury Redmen, who have had a look of being the best team in D4 all year. And I think for most of the year, gentlemen, we both agreed that these were probably the two best teams in Division 4. And here we are. They're playing for a state title on Saturday. Not a surprise to me that both of these teams are here. Mukala, I'm going to start with you. Should Tewksbury be a prohibitive favorite in this game, or should more people be putting some respect on the name of Scituate, the defending champion, with a lot of guys back, mind you, on that team that were key contributors on last year's Super Bowl team?
Yeah, this is one of those. I understand why Tewksbury is the prohibitive favorite. This team has been dominant. Their schedule has been really good. They played some tough opponents. Hockomock opponent. I said Hockomock. Merrimack Valley opponents. They've gone on the road. They've dominated. They dominated at home. Nobody's really been able to keep up with them except Lowell and Methuen for a little bit. They've got everything. They're as well rounded as a team that you will see this weekend. And not for nothing, Scituate's the same way. They are a well-rounded team. They got experience. They got Foley. They got Donovan. They got the quarter. They got everything that will give Tewksbury some issues. But this will be a good game. But I think Tewksbury is going to pull away late. I just think that this Tewksbury's team's too good.
Speaking of perplexing Thanksgiving games, Hingham beat Scituate 35-0, and Scituate played starters. Scituate didn't pull their starters until the third quarter when that game was already out of hand. Definitely didn't see that coming at all. Tewksbury, was in a battle with Wilmington as well, but I think both teams are going to be ready for this moment. Again, we've talked about this many times throughout this year and throughout the last few years, what Herb Devine's done at Scituate. Scituate was by no means a football power before Herb Devine took over, and now it seems like they're they are a fixture at Gillette. They're there pretty much every year. Johnny Donovan, terrific quarterback, and I think Foley's on the short list of top playmakers, most impactful players in the state. They're a very good team. I think they're going to be hungry to bounce back, and they're going for the repeat here. We're playing at Gillette state championship game, but also hungry to bounce back from that Thanksgiving morning loss to Hingham. The Redmen, though, I think they've been the best team in the division throughout the year. They only had that one close game against Lowell. They've dominated everyone else in their path. They're good offensively. They're good defensively. They can beat you through the air. They can beat you on the ground. They're bigger than most Division 4 teams. I think, they can play with, 99% of teams across the board for, regardless of division. They're a legitimate top 10 team in the state, if not, top 5 or 6. There's just so much balance here, and I think Coach Aylward and the guys get it done. I believe that will be their first one since 2013. But a lot of balance on that offense. They also play terrific defense. I just think it's the Redmen's year.
I think this is going to be a terrific game. I think Scituate's going to surprise people with how well they're going to play. In the end, though, I'm going to go with Tewksbury as well. I just think they've had that look of being that team all year. You mentioned, Tyler, they could beat you running the football with Emeka Olu. They could throw the football. Defensively, they're really good as well. I do think this is a tough matchup for Scituate, but despite that, I wouldn't count out Johnny Donovan, Grayson Foley, and Herb Devine and that staff. They've been there. I think they're going to make this close. I think it's going to be a good competitive game, but I do agree with you in terms of them being able to play with 99% of the teams in the state. I think Tewksbury is not only a top 10 team, but in theory, you could make an argument that potentially, when all is said and done, they could potentially be a top 5, top 6 team. So nonetheless, I think Tewksbury gets it done, winning their first title since 2013. All right, next up is the Division 3 Super Bowl, which will be played on Friday night at 7:45. It features Hockomock League rivals North Attleboro versus King Philip. Of course, North Attleboro is the defending Division 3 state champion. They beat Mansfield last year 35-0 in a game that was a rout and wasn't really ever in doubt. It wasn't close. Nonetheless, they're back to defend their crown, but this time they're taking on a King Philip team who's making their 5th straight appearance at Gillette Stadium, 8th appearance in the last 9 years. King Philip, during this run, has won 3 Super Bowls. Tyler, I'm going to start with you. This is going to be the proverbial fist fight in a phone booth here. Kevin Stone said to me that he wants to be on the sideline for this one because he just wants to hear the physicality. He thinks it's going to be that physical of a game. I don't believe that Kevin Stone can withstand the cold that we're going to be having on Friday night. It's supposed to be about 15 to 18 degrees at kickoff. I don't think Kevin Stone is a fake cold lover. He's a fake cold weather lover. I don't think Kevin Stone can withstand the cold. I like the cold over Kevin Stone. Oh, yeah, let's talk about the football game as well.
Well, I'm a real cold lover, so I'll be down there on the sidelines for that one.
I'm not. I hate that shit. Me and McCall hate the cold.
That should be a fun one. Yeah, it's a classic Hockomock League game. We saw Hockomock rivals in Division III last year. This game is definitely going to be much closer than that one where, what was it, 35-0 last year?
Yeah.
North over Mansfield. So we're going to get a much closer game this time around. I know there's been some banter going back and forth between the two coaching staffs. North wanted to play KP again. They want another shot. And I think this is going to be a fantastic game. And I think North getting back to this point just speaks volumes of Mike Strack and his ability as a coach, but his ability to not build the program but maintain this elite level here at North Attleboro, where they lost a ton from that team last year, and it just hasn't mattered. They're right back here in the title hunt, and I think that they're going to be able to keep this close for a while. This is going to be a very quick game. I don't know what the over under on pass attempts is, but I don't know. It's probably like 5.5. And you might take the under on that one.
I'd take the under.
Going to be a lot of runs. I think Frankie Strachan. He's had a terrific postseason run. He's a special player. Doesn't come off the field. He'll run the ball 35 times and then play middle linebacker for them as well. So, and Dylan Brousseau's had a nice postseason as well. He's really emerged here as both a runner and a passer.
Yeah,
especially in these last couple of games against Milton and Barnstable. He's really played well in the playoffs. Tough to bet against KP at this point, though. John, you mentioned 8th time in 9 years. Brian Lee going for his 4th state championship here at KP. And I think they do get it done. I think KP wins their 2nd title in 3 years, and 4th in 9 years here. It's going to be a low-scoring game, 14-7, something like that. Classic Hockomock League rock fight. But give me the Warriors in this one. It should be one hell of a game. This is especially when you factor in the weather. This is like sort of how football is supposed to be played.
Yeah, I'll be bundled up. I'll be layered up. I'm just counting down the days, man. After Saturday, it's no more outside for me. But watching North Attleboro,
you still have to go outside though to get to those basketball games, my friend. So I wouldn't say no more outside unless you can teleport yourself over.
Yeah, I'll be in the car a little bit more than I have to be outside. But the way North Attleboro handled Milton was very impressive from the beginning. They controlled that game from the beginning. And Brousseau, he had about around 150 yards rushing, but he made some passes. They don't pass much, but the times they did pass in that game, he made 2 big passes that led to touchdowns. And then Frankie Strachan, the big back, hard to get down. I mean, on North Attleboro's first offensive drive, I think he carried the ball 10 or 11 times. So this is going to be one of those physical games with which team is going to give an edge to which offensive line is going to dominate or which offensive line is going to win the battle. So the experience of King Philip and Coach Lee, I think, might just put them over the top in this one. This is the second meeting between these two teams. I think this will be a good match. This will be a good game. I think in the end, King Philip will make the plays down the stretch like they did against Malden Catholic to win this one.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm coaching in this game, so I'm going to have to recuse myself in terms of a pick. But the one thing I will say, it's hard to beat a team twice. King Philip beat North Attleboro week 2, 21-7 in a great game. I do think it's hard to beat a team twice. I agree with you, Tyler, in that this is going to be a rock fight. I know from the King Philip perspective, we're fully expecting that type of physical game that's going to be tightly played, and it's going to be back and forth. And it's really going to come down to playing fundamentally good football, taking care of the football, in which team can make those 2 or 3 big plays. Like Mukala said, North was able to make a couple of those big plays in the passing game, and that helped them beat Milton. Games like this typically comes down to who can make those plays, especially in the second half, to put their team in a position to get that go-ahead score and win the game. It's going to be a terrific game. They're Hockomock League rivals. I know that there's a lot of consternation out there in Massachusetts about KP playing in Division III and why is Barnstable and Marshfield in Division III, and they're all there because they want to get away from CM. Again, it has nothing to do with CM. It has to do with enrollment. The bottom line is the enrollment of these schools has dropped since the last realignment, and that's why they're there. And if you want to argue that with me or anybody else, go ahead and argue it all you want. At the end of the day, go over to the MIAA, MIAA.net, and you'll see for yourself that you can opt up, but you cannot opt down. You'd have to petition the MIAA and appeal your placement. And from what I've talked to plenty of people that have said to me that these appeals that they got, they were very, very strict in terms of how they handled them and whether or not they granted them. So bottom line is declining enrollment is why King Philip is in D3, why some of these other programs went down to D3, and ultimately it made D3 one of the best divisions in the state. This should be a terrific matchup. All right, next up we have the Division II matchup, which is an all-Catholic matchup, just like the Division I matchup. It features Catholic Memorial versus Bishop Fee. And, of course, CM has been the dominant program in Division II now for years. They're going for their 4th title in 5 years. John DiBiasio has the Knights playing some really good football, going up against a Bishop Feehan team that proved to be pretty gutsy in a come-from-behind win over Bridgewater Raynham. Mukala, I'm going to start with you here with this one. I think a lot of people look at this matchup and they say, okay, look, it's CM. They've been dominant the last few years. They've been the benchmark program in this division. They've been arguably the best program in the state the last few years. They're going to win. But this Bishop Feehan team, if nothing else, can be competitive in this game and keep it close.
Yeah, I think if Bishop Feehan wants to win this game, they have to really emphasize their running game, especially running in between the tackles on CM. From watching them, the games I've seen CM this season, teams have had success running between the tackles, running up the middle. Even though it was 49-0 against Winchester, they had some success running the ball. They especially right up the middle. So if Bishop Feehan could somehow control the clock, execute in the running game, and keep the CM offense on the sideline for long periods of time, have long sustained drives that ends in points, they'll give them a chance they'll give themselves a chance to win this game. But the problem is CM scores so fast that their offense is such quick hitting, it's so hard. So they really, Feehan has a great defense, but they really have to be disciplined and execute on their assignments, on their alignments, because any little mistake, one of those CM players could take a short pass and go 80 yards, or take a turn and run that looked like it was stop and turn it into a big run. So they really have to tackle well and be fundamentally sound. But it's going to be a tough task. But if they want to, those are the key things for Bishop Feehan if they want to win those games. But Kais Flannery, he's been playing very well. I mean, Christian Simmons, the plethora of weapons he have, this is just a tough team to beat. So I'm going to pick CM in this one. But Feehan, if they want to win this game, they're going to have to control the clock. And when they get in the red zone, they're going to have to score.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to take a lot. I think they're going to have to get like a lot of breaks, bounces of the ball early in the game to believe that they have a chance and that they're able to hang around in this one. Feehan's rattled off whatever 10 straight wins or whatever it is since that loss to Zavarian. They've pulled out some come from behind wins, and talking to Coach Pinnabill after that win over BR, he was like, this is just what we do. Like we, for whatever reason, we dig ourselves into holes, and then pull ourselves out. I think they have 5 or 6 come from behind wins this year. They haven't seen they saw a team, a comparable team to CM in week 1 against Zavarian. They lost that game 35-7. I would expect this game to play out pretty similarly. CM's just on a roll right now. I still think Winchester's the second best team in this division, and last week they beat them 49-0. So it's been a great year for the Shamrocks, but I just don't think and nobody in the division matches up well with CM. They just have too many. They're too big. They're too explosive. They have too many weapons. Jackson Tucker missed some time during the season, but he's back now. Ramar Thomas is a game-breaking threat. Christian Simmons, Kais Flannery's playing really well. I think Kais Flannery's really gonna have a nice game in this one. Jack Lambert picked apart that Bishop Fee defense, and Adrian Peebles was able to run on them a little bit as well. So I think CM's just they're just too loaded. There's too much skill on that team, and they're gonna win this one and add another one for Coach DiBiase.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to break down here. I think Coach Pinnabell's done a tremendous job with this Fian program, getting them back to the Super Bowl. Remember, this Fian program was a fixture in the state title game for years, especially the early years of these Gillette games. But unfortunately, they don't match up here. And you hit the nail on the head, Tyler. This comes down to their skill. CM's skill is next level. It's elite. There's only a handful of teams in the state that can remotely stay competitive with them, and that's St. John's Prep, Zavarian, Springfield Central, maybe a couple of other programs, fill in the blank. I just don't think that Fian has enough skill to keep up with that skill. And to Mukala's point, and I think it's a valid one, if you can find a way to run the football inside the tackles, and you can run on this CM team, we saw St. John's Prep do it. If you can run inside the tackles and play some keep away, you got to finish drives too, though. It's not just about controlling the clock and playing keep away. If you can do that, you can at least find yourself in the game going into the fourth. At King Philip, we were able to do that a couple of times where it allowed us to stay in the game against them. But again, to Tyler's point, too many big play weapons here, too many guys that can change the complexion of a game on one run or one catch. You can only stave them off for so long before their talent takes over. I think that'll be the case once again here. Maybe Fian keeps us close for a half, but ultimately the cream rises. Catholic Memorial wins another Super Bowl in Division II, and we can bandy about for the next 9 months whether or not they should be in D2 and whether or not it's fair and everything else. It's not going to matter. They're never going to opt up. They're going to point to their enrollment and say, we're a low enrollment school with a small school in the Catholic Conference. They're going to say that they already play a good schedule because they're in the Catholic Conference. And you know what? Those are both valid points. And at the end of the day, like it or not, they're in D2. And barring something changing there, I think that they're going to stay in D2 for the foreseeable future. All right, finally, we have the Division I matchup, which will be playing on Saturday night at 6:15. It's a rematch of last week's Thanksgiving game between Zavarian and St. John's Prep. The X beating Prep last week 21-18 to hand them their first loss of the season. Of course, these two teams met in the state title game 2 years ago. Zavarian swept both of those games. It's one of the best rivalries in the state. They're familiar opponents with each other. I think one of the hardest things you can do in football, especially at the high school level, is play an opponent for a second time, but to play them for a second time in a week, I don't know how many changes or adjustments you can make in your plan from 1 week to another when you're playing the same school, but I'm sure these two coaching staffs are going to figure it out. But, Mukala, I'm going to start with you. When you look at this matchup on paper, I mean, I think they're both pretty evenly matched teams. The question now is, does Zavarian's experience prove to be the difference here, and can they win that third straight title?
Yeah, there's a high possibility they could win that third straight title. They jumped out to a 14-0 lead last week on Thanksgiving. St. John's Prep made a late rally at it late, had a chance to win the game. Great defense by Zavarian. I would have liked to see Parent to run that in. I felt like he could have hit that corner and ran that in. But hey, it is what it is. These two teams evenly matched. We're still not sure of the status of Vargas, if he will play, because coming out, this is like 3 or 4 weeks now. that he's been sidelined. So we're not certain of his status, but a very, very capable backup. I just think this is going to be another one of those games like they had back in 2023. It's going to come down to probably the last possession. These two teams are just too familiar with each other to not give the fans a really, really exciting game to close out the fall sports season. And these are two head coaches that is very hard to pick against in big games. These two coaches have shown throughout the years that in big games that they can come up with a strategy or a game plan to pull out victory. So this is a hard game to pick, but it's Coach St. Pierre, man. It's a little biased on my end, but it's hard for me to pick against Coach St. Pierre in big games, and I think they're gonna pull this one out at by one score. But I think it'll be kind of a reverse from what happened last week. The Eagles will pull this one out, but this is gonna be a great matchup. The quarterbacks we got, and this one even with the backup, but Will Wood, Christian McIntyre, Chivagato. Those guys have been playing really well, especially Christian McIntyre. He's been playing on another level this postseason. So that's going to be the key for St. John's Prep is to slow him down. He beat them a couple times last week, so they got to find a way to eliminate the big plays from McIntyre because his downfield ability is really what sets the tone for the Zavarian offense. So see what the adjustments the Eagles will make on defense to try to slow down McIntyre. But in the end, it's hard for me to pick against Coach St. Pierre.
It's like absolutely insane that these teams play each other twice in 9 days, and they just held nothing back in that Thanksgiving Day game. Jesus,
it's Thanksgiving.
So the conference title on the line, and now you got a D1 state title on the line. And I said last week before on the preview show, I said that I thought these teams would split and it wouldn't be a repeat of 2023, but I've since reversed course, and I'm going to go Zavarian here to pull off the three-peat and beat St. John's Prep for the second time in 9 days. I think how they held up against that rushing attack was super impressive. You're not going to entirely eliminate that running game. You're not going to stop Toribio and Parent, but can you slow them down? Can you contain them? Can you make them put together 10, 15 play drives rather than these 2, 3, 4 play quick hitters, 70-yard touchdowns like we saw St. John's Prep do to Central Catholic and many other teams throughout the year? Zavarian, they just flip a switch when November comes. Like, this is a team that lost to Central Catholic earlier this year. They lost 2 games early in the season, and then they avenged that loss to Springfield Central. Then they beat St. John's Prep. They beat CM earlier in the year. They're just playing great football. They always do. Coach Fenara always has his guys playing their best football in November. They just have that that big game experience. Not that St. John's Prep doesn't, but St. John's Prep wasn't here last year, so a lot of these players that are playing now for St. John's Prep are younger, so they weren't a part of that 2023 team. But Zavarian has a lot of these guys back. Where you talk about Will Wood, Chivagato, McIntyre, Bryce Todd, Dominic Funk. The list goes on. This is going to be one hell of a game, though. Of course, rivals, but there's also so much talent on display, so many college level athletes on the field. Right. I think Zavarian gets it done. I do. I think a large part of that is the return of Dave Chivagato, who I thought his status was sort of in question, or I had heard his status was in question for the rest of the season. I guess he re-aggravated something, but he came back in that game on Thanksgiving, and he played that game, and looks like he's good to go. And they've got. They're again, like we're talking about, maybe 4 teams in the state have this level of skill. John, you kind of alluded to that when we were talking about the D2 game. It's CM, Springfield Central, Zavarian, and St. John's Prep. Though I think those are the 4 most talented teams in the state. And then so it's there aren't many teams that could play with Zavarian or St. John's Prep, but they just happen to be Thanksgiving rivals and 2 teams that could play against each other and match the physicality and match the skill on the field. So it should be a great game. I think, Mukala, you're right. It's going to be something similar to 2023 where we get a game that literally came down to the last play. I could see something like that unfolding again. True toss-up, but I lean Zavarian here to pull off the three-peat.
Yeah, it's hard to pick against the X in this spot. I think St. John's Prep can beat them, and if you told me at 8:30 on Saturday night that St. John's Prep beat them, I'd believe you. I wouldn't even give it a second thought. In the end, I do think Zavarian's experience gives them the edge here. I do think they win this game, and I do think they three-peat. And yes, look, Shivigato, McIntyre, fellow Norwood guys. Their dads were Norwood High grads. I actually went to high school with Dave Shivigato. We graduated together in '93. And Jay McIntyre, Christian's dad, who was a terrific athlete at Norwood, was class of '95, I believe. But that's not why I'm picking Zavarian. I think ultimately this will be a really good game. By the way, Shivigato's dad didn't play football, as far as from what I remember. He didn't play football anyway. But he was a really good athlete, and Dave's followed suit. I think this is going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be a close game. It could play out like that 23 matchup, to your point, Tyler. But I think in the end, I think that Zavarian, that experience, having been there last year, winning last week, they know how to play against the Prep. They know how to beat the Prep. I think ultimately that's the difference here. I see this being a 28-24 kind of game, maybe a 26-22 kind of game. I think it'll come down to the wire, but I'm going with the X. All right, and before we wrap up the show, I do want to mention again, and I said this to start the show, that the CIAC playoffs kick off tomorrow night. They were supposed to kick off tonight, but due to the inclement weather, they were pushed back to tomorrow night, and the entire schedule has been pushed back. So Sunday's second-round games will now be played on Monday. The championship games were slated to be played on Friday night and Saturday. They are now all going to be played next Saturday, December 13th. 3 of the games will be played at the Rent in Hartford. The other 3 will be played at a root field on the campus of Central Connecticut State University. And, gentlemen, I think when you look at some of the matchups here real quick, Class LL is wide open. That's a top class in Connecticut, by the way. Last year, Greenwich won it, and I think a lot of people thought, all right, they're bringing back enough that they'll be the favorites. And they are amongst the favorites. They're not the 1 seed. They're the 3 seed. Tough opening matchup against Staples there. Our Craig Boland's going to be there for that game tomorrow night. Team to keep an eye on, though, in this class for me is Fairfield Prep. They're the 2 seed. They had a pretty good year. And this is a program that I think a lot of people have kind of sort of forgotten about in Class LL. But the Jesuits are back, and they're a program that could potentially go on a run here. New Britain is the 1 seed. They open up against NFA. Another program to keep an eye on is Southington as a potential dark horse in Class LL. They're your 4 seed. Tough first-round matchup tomorrow night against Glastonbury, but nonetheless, Class LL, which is the top division in Connecticut, should be pretty good once again. Amaral, your thoughts there?
I think Greenwich is the favorite, even though they're the 3 seed.
Yeah, I agree.
I still think
I agree.
It's tough to pick against Greenwich this time of year. So I think they're the slight favorite. But if we get a couple weeks down the line and you told me that any one of Greenwich, Fairfield Prep, or New Britain won it, I wouldn't be surprised at all. New Britain has that 1 loss to Fairfield Prep earlier in the year, but that offense is playing really well right now. I wouldn't be surprised if any of those 3 teams came out.
Class LL, Class LL. No, go ahead, Mukala.
I think Greenwich being a 3 seed might give them the motivation they need. I mean,
yeah,
kind of flying under the radar, kind of with being the 3 seed. So they'll probably they'll use that for motivational purposes.
And I think a lot of people also started to doubt them after they lost to Wilton in a defensive battle. But that's the key. This team can play really good defense, and they can run the football. And I think that's where Coach Morello's squad could have an advantage this time of year. So I still think they're the favorite. But I really think Fairfield Prep in particular is the one team that could potentially play spoiler there. In Class L, I mean, it's Buchanan once again. They're the 1 seed. They're going to open up against rival Darien, who they played on Thursday on Thanksgiving. So just like the Prep and Zavarian, they're playing again a few days later. And Newtown is your 2 seed. Cheshire is your 3 seed. Those are the 2 teams really that could potentially make a run at New Canaan, but ultimately I think what it comes down to is this is New Canaan's class. It's been their class for a while now. I think it would be a major upset if the Rams don't win it again in Class L. Class MM, you've got some intriguing matchups here in the first round. Wilton and Torrington is one to keep an eye on. Windsor is the 1 seed, but Wilton, who is the 2 seed, Wilton did lose to St. Joe's down the stretch, but Wilton, in my opinion, should be the favorite in this class. It's a really good class, and I think a lot of people are going to say, okay, well, Windsor is potentially the team that they could end up playing in the championship game. I think it comes down to Windsor and Wilton. I think if you're looking for a potential sleeper here, Bunnell is the 3 seed. But when you look at this class here, I think Windsor and Wilton are head and shoulders above every other team.
I would say so too. I think I lean. That's a toss-up to me. I think I lean Windsor slightly over Wilton as the favorite, but I agree that they are the 2 best teams in the class.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be Windsor in this one, but yeah, it's one of those you could pick either or just because of how talented both teams are and how good
They're very talented. And to your point, Mukala, I think both of these teams lost a game that I think got people's attention, but they lost to good teams. And so I think, like Wilton loses to St. Joe's, and you're like, well, but that's St. Joe's. St. Joe's is the number 1 seed in Class M, and they've been arguably the most consistent program in the state this year in terms of public schools. They've been terrific outside of maybe Killingly. They've been terrific. And Coach D's done a great job with them, and they'll be a favorite to repeat again. And speaking of Class M, they're the favorite. They're the 1 seed. They open up with WCA tomorrow night. If you're looking for a team that could potentially, there's a couple of teams here, I think, in Class M that could potentially give them problems. The 2nd seed, Berlin, the Redcoats, led by John Caprice, who's returned to the helm. He's done a great job there with that program. And another program to keep an eye on is actually the 6th seed, Holy Cross, with Deshaun Graves, one of the best athletes in New England, not just in Connecticut. He is a dude. Those are 2 programs to potentially keep an eye on as being the primary competition for St. Joe's in Class M.
Yeah, I think it's St. Joe's. I think they're the most well-rounded team there, so I think they'll come out on top as the 1 seed.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean towards St. Joe's as well. They're probably the most talented team in that division, so I'll go St. Joe's.
Brookfield is another program as the 5 to keep an eye on as well. I think we're on a collision course for Berlin and St. Joe's zone. I think two really good coaches that do a great job getting their teams ready to play. I think that will be a potential terrific championship matchup in Class M. Finally, your final 2 classes, Class SS. Killingly is a wagon. The Choir Corner was rocking once again this season. Coach Chad Neal, another tremendous team. They ran through everybody this year, beating Bishop Hendricken, of course, which got a lot of people's attention earlier in the season. Of course, you got the Allard brothers, Hayden Allard, one of the best backs in Connecticut and in New England. It's going to be hard to pick against this team. But the one thing I will say, if there's one team in this bracket that could beat him, it's Daniel Hand. Hand's been really good this year. They do have that 1 loss, but Luca Boyce, he's one of the best athletes in the state, a talented team. I think that these 2 teams are on a collision course, but man, I got to tell you, I don't see how anybody stops Killingly from repeating. As good as Hand is, and they're very good and they're well coached, I'm not sure they're good enough physically to hold up against this Killingly team.
No, and I mean that offense, I don't know how you slow them down. They've scored 65 times, I think, and they scored 60 in 4 consecutive games. Just too loaded. Killingly's they're too loaded.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Killingsley. I can't even say it right. Killingsley. Too deep, too loaded, too talented.
Well, and I think that to your point, and I'm glad you mentioned that statistic, Tyler. I mean, it's ridiculous how good they've been on offense the last 2 years, especially this year. I mean, it's just. I had a couple of people reach out to me, and they're like, they're like the KP of Connecticut in terms of the way they play with the 2-back and 3-back stuff, and they're physical and they get downhill on you. And I'm like, that's a compliment to me. But getting to know Coach Neal and the way he runs that program. For me, the way I look at it is they play a style that a lot of other schools don't play and don't want to face. And I think that gives them a real advantage. I mean, I think it would be an upset if they didn't bring that Class SS state title back to the Quiet Corner once again in Connecticut. And finally, Class S, you have Woodland as the number 1 seed. Not an easy opening matchup tomorrow night. They have to play Bloomfield That's never easy. That's going to be a tough game for them. And then, of course, Ansonia is your 7 seed. Bloomfield and Ansonia played in the title game last year. Ansonia and Bloomfield have long been the power programs in this class. They both get in, but they're lower seed, so it remains to be seen. Seymour is your 2 seed. Cromwell, Portland is your 3 seed. Woodland looks like a definitive favorite here, but if there's one bracket where I would caution people to make sure that they're keeping an eye on the bottom of the bracket, it's this class, because again, you have Bloomfield and Ansonia sitting there. Both of those programs know how to win.
Yeah, I think Northwest Catholic is sort of a sleeper in this division too. I think they can make a little bit of noise as a 6 seed, but yeah, I think pretty much across the board here in Connecticut, I think seeding will hold serve, and we're going to see a lot of 1 seeds come out on top.
It'd be one of those things like the top seeds will advancing just because of the talent each of the top teams have it in these divisions. So, I mean, it makes for a good matchup to the end when you see the top teams go against each other.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I'm going to beg to differ here from both of you in that I think you could see an upset here tomorrow night. I think you could see someone, a higher seed, get bounced. I mean, again, I know that I'm putting a lot of stock in Bloomfield and Ansonia being in this bracket, but these are proven programs, and Ansonia is the defending champion. That's your 7 seed. I mean, if I'm Seymour, you're on upset alert here. I mean, this is a program that's physical. They can run the football. Tom Brockett for years had done a really good job there, multiple state titles. That's a program that has a lot of tradition. This is, if there was one class where you could see a major upset tomorrow night, I think this is the class. So we shall see. Gentlemen, great job as always. Of course, we're going to have a ton of coverage this weekend from the MIAA Super Bowl. So we're going to be doing this a couple of times this weekend here, boys. We got a lot to break down this weekend. Looking forward to working with both of you throughout the weekend. We're excited to have both of you as part of our coverage. And I know that we're in good hands when I say that. I really, truly believe that the two of you are two of the best in the business, and you make our coverage what it is. So I want to say thank you for a great season doing the high school preview show. But I also want to let you know that we appreciate you and your efforts, and we're looking forward to working with you once again this weekend.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
I'll be bundled up.
Make sure you bring your hand warmers, Mukala. I know I'll have mine. Yeah, I'll try to bring extras. I'll bring extras in case you don't have yours.
All right.
Just real quick before we talk a lot about the Super Bowls. Obviously, that's going to be the topic of conversation here. But just quick shout out to the 3 or the 6 schools participating in the tech championships, the vocational championships.
Yeah. There's one tomorrow, right?
Those are all tomorrow. Those are tomorrow night. Yeah. So tomorrow night in Medford in the large, you have Diamond versus Whittier, and then a doubleheader at New Bedford Vogue Tech, Blue Hills and Tri-County at 7:30, and then before that in the small, you've got South Shore against Cape Cod Tech. So those schools deserve a little bit of love too there as they're playing in their vocational championships.
Yeah, so that Blue Hills Tri-County matchup I think is going to be fantastic. Those two schools have been playing each other for years. Should be a really, really good matchup. All right, well, that'll do it for this episode of the high school football preview show. We're gonna do something to wrap up the season here next week as well. So don't despair. We will be back with you, and you'll be seeing a lot of us this weekend as well. But that'll do it for this week's episode. For Tyler Amaral, Mukala Kabongo, I'm John Sarianides. Make sure you're following along Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We will have complete coverage of the MIAA Super Bowls. And don't forget, tomorrow night, we're going to be covering 3 games down in Connecticut. Rob Gulo, Andy Close, and Craig Boland will have coverage of 3 of those playoff matchups down in Connecticut tomorrow night. So for you Connecticut folks out there, please make sure you're following those guys. They're going to be in 3 different games. Craig's going to be at that Greenwich Staples game, which would be a good first-round matchup in Class LL. So if you don't follow those guys, make sure you do, please. All right, that'll do it for this week's episode. Like I said, for Tyler and Mukala, we will be back with you next week. We will also be back with you at the end of the week. Get out there and enjoy the games. I know it's going to be cold, but don't be a wuss. The season's winding down. Get out there and support the kids. Peace.
Yeah, it's only a couple hours of cold. It's all.